In 1959, Houston, Texas was brutally segregated. The buses, the schools, the movie theaters. If you were black and you went to see the Oilers in the AFL championship game, you were only allowed to sit in the end zone. Segregation ended in Houston all at the same time, but for three different reasons. The three things were baseball, NASA, and the greatest civil rights demonstration that never happened. Of those three things, baseball was actually the first. Businessmen started making noise about building a domed stadium in the late 50s. To do it, though, they needed voters to help pay for it. That meant black voters, too. So they tried to recruit this man, Quentin Meese, who ran Houston's black YMCA. The stadium boosters had told Major League Baseball that everything was all set. Black people were on board, but then Quentin sent them a letter of his own.
I dictated that letter to my secretary that was sent up there and said that we supported the idea of getting baseball in Houston, provided that there would be no segregation.
Of course, Houston got their team, and when the Astrodome opened, black fans were allowed to sit wherever they wanted. The NASA one actually took a lot longer. There's a trivia question that NASA people like to ask, and it's this: what is the first word spoken by a human from another planet?
Houston, Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed.
But here's the thing about that. Houston wasn't NASA's first choice. It wasn't President Kennedy's either. But right before Kennedy gave this speech, NASA got a gift from Rice University.
Why does Rice play Texas? We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
Rice gave the government an enormous chunk of land in Texas to build a NASA center. But there was a problem.
If an American, because his skin is dark, cannot eat lunch in a restaurant open to the public, if he cannot send his children to the best public school available, if he cannot vote for the public officials who represent him, if, in short, he cannot enjoy the full and free life which all of us want, then who among us would be content to have the color of his skin changed and stand in his place?
President Kennedy was pushing hard for integration. Well, Rice University's charter said the school existed to provide for the instruction of white Texans. In 50 years, the school had never had a black student. The government couldn't accept the land unless Rice changed the charter. Simple, right? Change it. Well, no. When they tried, a group of alumni sued. It took years of court cases before Mission Control was able to open. And last is the greatest civil rights protest that never happened. Gordon Cooper was an astronaut. In 1963, he took the longest space flight ever by an American. When he got back to Earth, the country went nuts. He went to the White House. He spoke to a joint session of Congress. And there were parades for him in D.C. and New York. There was a parade planned in Houston, too, but right at the moment that it was going to start, activists were negotiating to desegregate the city's movie theaters. They had a plan to gain national attention for their cause. Otis King was one of their leaders.
We had people in the parade route who were going to block it.
Students from all-black Texas Southern University stuffed protest signs under their clothes and blended into the crowd.
I think we probably had about 40 people, and about half of them would have moved into the street and blocked the parade. Half would have moved behind and kept them from turning around or going in another direction.
Houston had been telling America it was a different kind of Southern town. This would expose them. Protest organizers were on the phone negotiating with Lowe's Theater Company in New York as the Cooper Parade got underway.
We didn't tell them exactly what we were going to do, but we told them it would make the national news.
The group had their own deadline, one that left enough time to send runners out to get word to the protesters and tell them whether or not they had a go. Within minutes of the failsafe point, Lowe's theaters capitulated. The protest was canceled, but for the first time, Houston's movie theaters were open to blacks. Today's justice advocates know that they stand on the shoulders of giants, but sometimes it's really helpful to say who specifically those giants were and what exactly they did.